911 operators. What's the dumbest call you've ever received? I'm a telephone triage nurse, so not 911, but a 24-hour hotline for people to call when they are having a medical problem, but aren't sure if they need to go to the ER or not. I have a few favorite stories, but I'll share this one. A quite pregnant, don't remember exactly how far along, but definitely past 30 weeks. Woman calls to say that her doctor told her to refrain from having sex for the rest of the pregnancy, and she didn't understand why. I looked at her file and saw she was having preterm contractions, so I explained that sexual activity can cause contractions. So it was safer to abstain so the baby could stay inside as long as possible. She tearfully exclaims, "But how will I feed the baby?" Me, "I'm sorry, ma'am, could you repeat that?" Patient, "How will I feed the baby if I can't have sex?" The patient was convinced that her baby was living off of her boyfriend's semen and that it would starve if they stopped having sex. I explained about the umbilical cord, etc. But she refused to believe me until I asked her about single moms, lesbian moms, etc., and asked how their babies fed and grew. After a moment of silence, she thanked me and started to hang up the phone, but not before I heard her screaming her boyfriend's name. That man had a good thing going for a while there. I honestly wasn't sure if I felt more sorry for him or a baby growing up in that household. I did triage for a few years at a family practice clinic, and I had to call 911 at least twice for people who refused to. Why would you call your primary physician's office to say, "My throat is closing up"? I said, "I'm hanging up and calling 911 for you right now." And I heard a whispered scream of "No!" She was transported with an allergic reaction and was extremely angry with me due to her bills and tried to have me fired. The second time was a woman describing stroke-like symptoms and wanted to see our nurse practitioner who didn't have an opening for like 3 weeks. I told her that her symptoms sounded like a stroke and that she needed to call 911, and she kept insisting I schedule her with the NP. I finally hung up and called for her, and she was in fact having a stroke. Oh geez, I've had that happen so much. We are discouraged from calling 911 for people because we didn't necessarily know if they were at their home address and couldn't give directions, so I only did that a few times for what I felt were true emergencies. But I called the non-emergency police number and asked them to go check on patients quite a bit. Most of those calls resulted in the patient ending up in the ER one way or another. Most of the time it was people like your first patient who were scared of the bill an ambulance and an ER visit would entail. It's truly disgusting how our medical system scares away people who really need care. It's sad. My son cracked his eyebrow open at 1 o'clock on a Sunday. No urgent cares open, but luckily an in-network hospital across the street. Got a bill this week? They want $828 for just the doctor because, get this, the hospital is in network, but the doctor isn't. What? I called my insurance and they agreed to process the claim as a network and apply it to the deductible. But it's still gonna be $350 out of pocket, but hey, at least we were close to the deductible. Off topic, but just wanted to let you know that your job is probably the best thing that's happened to me. I'm hypochondriac, and when I'm feeling really anxious about a tumor in my brain, you guys remind me that it's just a headache and to take extra strength Tylenol. I call once a month at least. Thank you so much for doing your job. Had a drunk person call to report he was being harassed. Truth was, he was being arrested by our officers for throwing pizza at people. All I heard in the background was one of my officers saying to him, "That better not be our dispatcher on the phone," followed by some muffled talking, and my officer taking the phone and saying, "He will be taking a ride with us now," and hung up. Still laugh about it to this day. Also had a drunk woman call 911 because she couldn't remember her phone passcode. I totally did that phone passcode thing once. I got blocked out of my phone for entering the wrong passcode, so stupid teenage me thought the emergency button connects to the phone center to fix my password. 911, what's your emergency? Wait, what? Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. So it's not an emergency? No, it's not an emergency. So sorry. Yeah, embarrassing. Well, at least you realized your mistake and got off the call pretty quick. Would be 100 times worse if you called and insisted they fix your phone. 911, what's your emergency? I'm not able to log on to the phone. Okay, what is your emergency then? Sir, I am not a computer person, so I don't know. Do you know what address you're at? I don't know what that is. Okay, when you called us, did you call from a mobile phone, a home phone, or... Sir, I have already told you that I am not a computer person. You're refusing to help me, so I'm going to hang up. Caller, a deer just swam across the river behind my house. Me, okay. Caller, well, I am worried it might be cold. Me, well, there is nothing we can do about a deer being cold. Didn't it run off after swimming the river? Caller, yes. Me, well, ma'am, it's a wild animal, and I'd guess it's going to be fine. Caller, okay. Oh dear God, time to fucking shine. Had a lady trying to call an ambulance because she opened a package from Amazon at home and she was afraid that her kid was about to have a major allergic reaction from the packing peanuts because the kid was allergic to peanuts. And when her kid mentioned what they were called, she freaked out. My mom works as a 911 operator. She got a call one time from a girl in gym class at the local high school. She was in a panic and completely serious, saying there was a squirrel on top of a telephone pole at the school, and it wasn't coming down. How could someone possibly think this was an emergency? The squirrel might fall. There's a fucking squirrel that sits in my apple tree all day. It chirps at the dogs. Fucking chirps at them. And if that goddamn squirrel is in a tree that has some kind of fruit or nuts, it will throw the fucking things at my dogs. My dogs hate it. My dogs want to kill it so badly. To those singularly possessed canines, the limp, lifeless corpse of that squirrel was as sweet as a cake from a diabetic nightmare. Today, it sat in that fucking tree. As is tradition, I tried to super soaker the fucker down. Normally it runs off along the fences while the dogs chase in a futile attempt to catch it. One of them has even taken to running full speed at the fence to knock it off balance. But that little fucker took a bath from my super soaker. So I grabbed an apple picker and stabbed at that heartless little demon. Maybe it was, for once, scared. Maybe the water blinded it a bit. But it didn't jump onto the fence. It jumped straight into the middle of the grass. The dogs, my God, the dogs had a chance. Then went after that big-tailed rat like a starving Usain Bolt would run at a finish line made of pizza. I'd like to say they took that squirrel in their jaws and shook the life out of it slowly and loudly. I'd like to say that they made it suffer before the light fell out of its eyes and its neck broke. But that little fucker got away again because the world is awful and full of suffering. TLDR squirrels don't get hurt from falling, evidently. Not an operator, but my now ex-boyfriend who called in. He usually worked a late shift, walking home about 2 a.m. This shift, he got off work a few hours late. BF, I'd like to call and report a fire. We live in a fire-prone area, and it was the season. 911, where is it located, sir? BF, on the hillside just east of city. 911, can you be more specific? Typing away in the background. BF, yes, gives a more detailed location. Oh God, it's getting bigger. The whole top of the hill is on fire now. 911, stay calm, sir. We're sending somebody out. BF, it's getting bigger. Doesn't anybody else see this? It's lighting up the sky around it. It's huge. Oh God. Oh, wait. 911, sir? BF, I am so sorry. I'm not usually out this time of night. I just got off work late. That's the sun. 911, BF. I am so sorry for wasting your time. There is no fire. That's just the sun rising. Never mind. I'm really embarrassed. 911, that's fine, sir. I will cancel the call. Thank you for calling. Edit. Former boyfriend said I forgot a detail, so I added it in. A friend of mine once called 911 when he was a kid because his aunt was having a baby at the hospital. Reminds me of a family I used to babysit for. Dispatcher, what's your emergency? 4-year-old. I got a cut on my finger. Dispatcher, is your finger bleeding? 4-year-old. Yeah, a little bit. Dispatcher, okay, sweetie, is your mom or dad there to help you clean it up and put a Band-Aid on it? 4-year-old. My mom is, but she fell over and isn't talking anymore. He didn't call 911 because of his cut. He called because he showed his mom his paper cut, and she passed out from the little pinprick of blood. She hit her head and was laying unconscious on the ground. Edit. You guys want to know more, so here's more. Mom was taken to the hospital. They gave her oxygen or something, I'm not sure. But she woke up that day and was fine. No brain damage or anything. She's really squeamish, but an awesome mom. Nick, the 4-year-old, got a super cool Elmo Band-Aid. Nick's older brother Mitchell had a firefighter visit his class at school that week. When he got home from school that day, Mitchell called 911 to see if it was true. The firefighters came to the house and explained to Mitchell and Nick when to call and when not to call. I guess little Nick was listening. He got the paper cut a few days after the firefighters came. Paramedic here. I had a guy who picked his wart at 3 a.m. and it was bleeding. That's it. That's the story. I know someone that called an ambulance in the middle of the night because they thought they were dying from what must be internal bleeding. After some time in the ER, it turned out it was just a really expensive fart. My great uncle insisted we rush him to the hospital because he thought he was dying from internal bleeding, raving about how his poo was black. So we rush him to the hospital, and he's fine. Turns out he got stoned and ate 2 packs of Oreos. I have been in the 911 biz for over 22 years. If a caller starts the call with, "I swear I'm not crazy," then you need to buckle up for some insanity. A guy started a call with those words after escaping from his apartment and running to the closest 7-Eleven. He swore that his roommates were turning into giant crabs. The was going to show the officers that they were currently in giant cocoons, transforming. As you might expect, he was tripping balls. I had to start a call like that once because a guy in a Spider-Man costume was running around breaking people's windows. Not an operator, I'm a prosecutor. Guy lived in a rooming house that had a public area where all the residents could hang out. It had a microwave in it provided by the landlord. Guy called 911 around midnight one night because the microwave wasn't there. The conversation with the dispatcher went something like this. Dispatcher, so, you called 911 because a microwave you don't even own is missing. Did you ask your landlord if he took it? Guy, no. Dispatcher, well, that's not an emergency, sir. Guy, but I'm really hungry. Meanwhile, a person with an actual emergency had to be put on hold briefly because this guy was adamant that this was the worst thing to ever happen. The genius insisted that police officers be sent to his rooming house ASAP because of the missing microwave. Officers showed up so they could cite him for improper use of 911. The guy pleaded not guilty and requested a jury trial. He represented himself. The jury was out 20 minutes before it announced its guilty verdict. Police 911 operator here for 15 years. The stories I have, I've had someone call 911 to know how long to smoke a brisket. I've had someone call 911 to ask what the fines for parking tickets are. I've had someone call 911 to wish me a Merry Xmas when I was working at 3 a.m. on Christmas morning. I've had someone call 911 report that their trunk wasn't opening and they wanted to know what to do about it. I've had someone call 911 in a rural community because a black dude was walking down the street, and we don't get their kind here. I worked on September 11th. I had people call 911 for weeks after because there were 3 brown guys in a car and I thought you should know about it. I've had someone call 911 because they were lonely, about 1,000 times, and many, many more. I've done this for a while. Do people abuse the system? Sure. But for the most part, I'm happy with how our children are taught to only use 911 if it's a life or death emergency or if there's a crime in progress. How far down is it snowing? All the way to the ground. Now get the f*** off my emergency line. The neighbor's giving my horse drugs. 0500 or earlier, every single day. Usually followed up about an hour later by, "It's crack. Lady, nobody is giving your horse drugs. Drugs are expensive." And my personal favorite, exact quote, "My washing machine is telling me to file for bankruptcy." This was a confused elderly lady, so it was actually a little sad, but I'm including it because it left me completely speechless at the time. I think my response was, what? Edit. Since everyone is worried, washing machine lady was fine. It was a minor medical call. Me? 911, this line is recorded. What is your emergency? Caller. Hi, I don't know if this counts, but 4 days ago, I noticed a U-Haul truck in my neighbor's driveway. Me. Okay. Caller. Well, the two guys looked really suspicious. They were walking around the house like they didn't belong there. Me. 4 days ago? Caller. It's been bothering me because my neighbors have been on vacation and no one should be there. Me. Okay, we'll take a look. The entire house had been ransacked. All the valuables were gone. Too much time had passed for the local pawn shops to have the items because they know what is stolen and needs to be moved quickly. LPT. If something doesn't seem right, don't ever second guess calling the cops immediately. If the operator gives you attitude, make a complaint. Not sure how it is elsewhere, but California pawn shops have to hold items for 30 days and send a description of the item with a thumbprint of the seller directly to the police station. I'm a pawnbroker. X911 operator. Worked in the Midwest. Lots of your garden variety daily dumb calls, but this is next level stupid. Story goes a little something like this. 911. What is the location of your emergency? Address. Sigh. So, I'm not really sure if this is an emergency. Ugh, this is so embarrassing. I'm sorry. I answered an ad on Craigslist for some services, with a woman, and somehow this ends in you dialing 911 at 1 a.m. And I answered the ad that said, send me what you got. So I sent her, sigh, some pictures. I got a reply that, oh my God, that said I had sent these photos to his daughter who was 16. I didn't know. I really didn't know. I think maybe someone put her number there as a joke, Right, okay, so you want to speak with an officer. What's your name? Well, I don't want to say my name and get in trouble or anything. I'm just worried that this needs to be brought to someone's attention and get it out there, You're on a recorded line with all of your information on our computer, homie. But proceed. I transfer the call to the on-duty sergeant, hoping he'll open up to another dude. He does, and then the truth erupts into a twisted tale of a love trapezoid straight out of an M. Night Shyamalan diary. It turns out the caller wasn't a child predator at all. He was just a horny kid on the prowl for some very legal kitty. A particular ad from a woman in a city called Hooker, shit you not, claiming to be 25 years old piqued, among other things, his interest, and he dutifully complied to the demand for cockshots. A brief time later, he was textually accosted by a reasonably enraged man, claiming to be the father of the alleged juvenile. Homeboy apologizes profusely and attempts to explain the situation by sending Daddy a link to the ad in question, presumably followed by the ordering of P90X and gathering of bail money. It is at this point the story takes a nosedive. Daddy, isn't. Daddy's true identity becomes hubby. His innocent little girl's phone is actually the phone of his wife. I believe it. Most 16-year-olds haven't been sexually dissatisfied long enough to turn to a Craigslist ad for W4MM, that's woman for multiple men. BTW. Edit. To clarify, TL, DR kid thinks he sent dick pics to a child after seeing an ad on Craigslist asking for multiple men. Calls 911 when he receives text from man claiming to be father of child-threatening violence and jail time. Investigation ensues. Dick pic recipient is actually cheating ho wife from a city called Hooker. Was a 911 operator at my previous job. Had a woman call 911 because she saw someone driving down the road with his foot out the window. She was following him the whole time and admitted he had his seatbelt on, wasn't texting or speeding, he just had his foot out the window. She wanted the police to pull him over, to which I had to explain he wasn't breaking any laws. She couldn't comprehend that driving with your foot out the window is not illegal, and proceeded to hang up on me, then call 911 again, because apparently I didn't know the law and she needed someone to stop this man. We connected her to a deputy who told her, if she didn't stop calling 911 for stupid reasons. He was going to ticket her for abuse of emergency communications. Edit. Also had one a couple of years ago where a dad called to ask for an ambulance because his 17-year-old daughter had a candle stuck up her anus. He tried to explain that she said she had gotten out of the shower and slipped and fell butthole first onto the candle. Medics said they found KY jelly with the candle, so I think we all know what was going on there. This will be piled in comments, but it still stuck with me for my entire life. When I was younger, my mother was a paramedic supervisor. The dispatch desk was pretty much handled by the dispatcher and whomever was closest to the phone. Pretty laid-back environment. The 911 operator would transfer and relay the calls to the person answering the phone at the ambulance station. I would randomly answer often while I was there hanging out, just to feel important. I answered one day, and this guy said he got the wrong number. Now, the same phone was used to business lines and emergency transfers, so you had to pay attention to what light turned on when the phone rang. When I answered this man's call, he called the business line. He told me it was an accident. I misunderstood and thought said there had been an accident. I immediately handed the phone to my mom so she could adult. My mom spoke to him for what seemed like hours. Turns out the man was calling his daughter whom he hadn't spoken to in years. He was calling to tell her goodbye because he was going to end his life. I don't know if my mom was amazing at her job or if it was fate, but that man, as far as I know, is still alive to this day and credits that to dialing the wrong number. Not exactly a 911 call, but close. Thank you for watching. Write comments, put likes. Do not forget to watch other videos.